towards the end. This session would be recorded, so yeah. Okay, so my name is Faith Oloruntoba. I'm a communications and engagement manager with Dillon Consulting, which is an engineering and planning firm, and I'll be moderating this session. My role here tonight is to help us move through the agenda and to ensure that all the information presented this evening is well received by you, and also to ensure that all your questions are answered by the panelists and that your contributions are heard. So I'm happy to welcome you today. The purpose of this meeting, probably as you've learned from the flyer, is to learn from experienced project managers about insights and tips for launching a project management career and growing through it. Our panelists are here to share knowledge and answer your questions. In terms of the agenda, so here is how we're going to proceed for the evening. Our panelists will take some time to share with us their career journey relating to project management. And then I would begin with prepared questions for each panelist and would open it up for Q&A where you can ask your questions. So I strongly encourage everyone to listen and participate. There will be enough time for us to respond to your questions. And at the end of this meeting, if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns that you felt were not answered, please feel free to connect with NIPCA afterwards. So with all that said, I would like to introduce each of the panelists and read their profile briefly. I'm just going to go around my screen. The first on my screen is Mukta Lasisi. Hello, Mukta. Mukta is an applications remediation program manager with Deloitte Canada. He has over 10 years experience leading technology and cybersecurity teams to successfully deliver projects across different industries. He has overseen key initiatives for some of the biggest companies in the UK, US, and Canada. He currently leads a compliance program that would deliver a regulatory compliance standard for application development within a global firm. He has a doctorate degree in business information systems, a master's degree in technology, innovation management, and several certifications in the field. What an impressive profile, Mukta. Hello, and nice to meet you, and welcome to the session.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Really happy to be here today.
I think you're mute.
I'm not. Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hello everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you all today. Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you.
Good.
Yeah, good. Welcome. And then the next on my list here is Omayeli Alamutu. Omayeli is a senior project manager with Bell Canada. She's a highly motivated and certified project management professional with 10 plus years work experience, managing large strategic initiatives in media, telecommunications, education, and not-for-profit industries. She's a pragmatic project manager with a solid understanding of project delivery methodologies, waterfall and Agile. She prides herself in being purpose-driven with a strong client focus, good understanding of business dynamics, the complexities of interpersonal relationships, and the benefits of sound project management practices. Oma, you have an impressive profile as well. It's nice to meet you here and welcome to the session.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And then we have Madu Kinsley. He's the CEO of Expedia. Madu is also known as the Prof. I'm going to ask you later why they call you that. But he's a seasoned project manager with over 15 years experience in project management. He has led and delivered projects across 21 countries. Wow. His passion is seeing immigrants thrive by breaking any self or system-imposed glass ceiling. He is also a serial entrepreneur and husband and father. Madu, welcome to the session. I think you're mute. Okay.
I'll fix that.
Okay. And then finally, we have Gbemisola Kudrat Shita. She's a senior tech project manager with Loblaw Digital. GQ, as she's fondly called, is a senior technology project manager with several years of experience in financial services and retail technology product and program management. She has a background in chemical engineering, undergrad and graduate, with a short stint in oil and gas platform design engineering before switching to tech as a software tester or software quality engineer. And she worked in this role for some years and then caught the bug of project management, wrote the PMP, and got the opportunity to switch into tech project management. And the rest is history. Bemi, it's nice to meet you. And I look forward to also delving further into your profile. It's an interesting one. And welcome to the session. Okay, so thank you, to our panelists for taking time to join us today. We look forward to learning from you and the insights we'll share. I would also like to, just say some housekeeping rule very briefly. I would like to ask everyone to mute themselves during the presentation. If you have a question, you could raise your hands or use the raise hand. You could raise your hands using the raise hand feature or type it in the chat box. I'm so excited for this session. I think it's going to be interesting. We want to have your comments and questions throughout. So please, type in the chats. And when you're not talking, just stay muted so we don't have interference. So at this point, I would like to call on you panelists to speak a bit about your career, your professional journey, and pivoting into project management. I know that the brief profile I read does not do justice to your wealth of experience. I would like to start with you, Omar. Can you tell us, briefly about your career journey so far and, your experience with project management?
Hi, everyone. My name is Omaili Alamutu, and I studied computer science as a first degree. And my first role, my first undergrad job was laying network cables and delivering desktops to clients and that sort of thing. And I absolutely hated it. I just didn't know why I had to be kneeling down under people's desks laying cables. It just wasn't my thing. So I ran off to do what became project management, coordinating in the educational sector, in the nonprofit sector, and just doing what were deliverables, projects at the time, but they weren't really called projects. It was just a job. However, I was still very interested in systems. I was still very interested in technology. And then an opportunity came for me to train those systems. And I moved into telecommunications as a trainer. The team that I was on was now merged with trainers and business analysts. And you know what comes next? Project managers. So there were project managers, these guys who looked like they weren't really doing anything, but they were calling the shots. So that was what piqued my interest. And it was an opportunity that I was looking, it was something that I was already doing, but not knowing that I was doing it. And so when we had a very large ERP project come on board, and I did training work. I functioned as a trainer. I functioned as a business analyst, and eventually as a project coordinator. And I guess, as they say, the rest is history. That's really how I got into project management.
Thank you very much, Omar. That's very interesting. I do have some questions for you, but we'll get back. I'll get back to you. But first, let me hear from Madhu. Can you tell us about your journey so far and how you pivoted to project management?
I was afraid I was going to go next. You didn't beat my expectations. Again, I'm glad to be here this evening, and I want to thank you for the opportunity, right? Project management, how did it all start for me? First, I read mechanical engineering, but I knew from day one that I was never going to be a mechanical engineer. I love tech, and so I ended up, in an IT office, right? As an MCSA. And then a few months into that, the HR manager of the then firm that I was with walked up to me and says, you should be a project manager. And I'm like, no, I'm not a project manager. And he says, yes, you are, because within 6 months of working in this department, your manager has even told us that you have overhauled the entire department. You have laid out processes, procedures, how to execute, like you've structured up everything, and you're the least role in this department. So the fact that you're doing this tells me that you are the natural project manager. And I'm like looking at him like, what is this man talking about? Anyways, long story short, of course, I couldn't say no, so I agreed, and that was how it all started out for me, right? And then, as you rightly said, I've kind of like gone around the world helping solve big problems, right, using project management approach methodologies, right? I guess that would be about it. Say, really, I guess later on we'll dive into the nitty-gritties, and I'll be able to provide more information. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madhu. That's very interesting. I already have a question from you based on what you've just said, but I'll come back to you as well. Bemi, you're next. Tell us, how did you, pivot into project management? What was your background before that? Just briefly.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. So I've always been joining so many NIPCA sessions, so it's my turn today to be on the panel. Yay!
Yay!
Yeah. So for me, project management is something that I think I've been exposed to right from the back. On my first job after leaving school, I studied engineering just like Madhu, first and second degree, chemical engineering to be precise. And so as a trainee engineer, I was exposed to project management, though from oil and gas engineering perspective. So I found it interesting. I was exposed to quite a number of project management software, the processes. As a trainee engineer, I found it interesting there. Though I didn't go deep into project management really at that stage, but I just had it as a training. I got the exposure to it. I saw the way the project engineers were working, and it was quite interesting to me, though I was in the process engineering field then. But then I lost my job in oil and gas, and I was opportune. It was just a job. It was like a few weeks. It was supposed to be like a few months of job really in tech, and that was the first time I was going into tech, in the tech space as a QA engineer. And it was so easy for me to slide in because I had transferable skills from engineering. It was easy for me to slide into QA as a QA analyst then. That was manual. It was called manual testing then. So it wasn't any major tech that I didn't have to be writing code. But really, it was basically just involved in doing quality assurance, kind of last mile testing as a dead. That's what testing was doing there compared to what you have testing doing now that comes in right from the back. So it was easy to slide in. And as a QA person, you get involved in so many things, get involved in designing and all that of the software. And so that actually kind of piqued my interest that I just don't want to be at the last mile. I want to be involved right from the bat. And I'm somebody that really likes tech too. So with that, I decided to go for the PNP really, because I felt that having the knowledge of the process, deep knowledge of the process, and getting certified in it was actually going to give me the basic, the first principles knowledge of project management. And so I used it on my job as a QA, as a lead QA, because I was managing multiple QA projects before I then had the opportunity to move into a project management role, still within the tech space. Because I'm somebody that I've always, I still wanted to remain in tech. I didn't want to go into the business side of things. So I've always been what you would call a technology project manager, which is what I still do.
That's very interesting, Bimi. Thank you very much. We'll delve deeper into your experience. So, Mukhtar, can you tell us a bit about yourself professionally and how you got into project management?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Right. My background is actually very similar to Omoyali's. I studied computer science, and straight out of school, I started as a network administrator working with NNPC. But then I didn't enjoy it much. I left the job. I went back home. I joined my family business, and my my very first experience, I would say my very first project management experience was actually to implement an ERP system for my family business. And that, to say was a failure would be like an understatement. And that was my very first experience with project management. I enjoyed it. So that ended up being an inventory management system, not an ERP system, as it was supposed to be. So I enjoyed that experience, and I thought to myself, you know what, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I've been doing it ever since. That's how I got into project management. So I can say I started off as a project manager, but if I have to look at, okay, why I did straight out of school, it was pretty much network administration, but I moved straight into project management.
Wow, thank you very much. Really, really diverse experiences there, but also, some similarities. Many of you studied engineering. So is that to say that engineering is already like a pathway, straight into or a preparatory ground? Just kidding. I'm also a project manager myself, but no engineering background. I don't have a tech background. I come from communications, but currently I work with a lot of tech people. Really interesting set of professionals, but I bridge the gap. Yeah. Omar, when you were talking about your experience, you did mention something about, you moved into, tech, as a trainer, you moved to telecoms as a trainer, and then the teams were merged, and you were doing project management, but you didn't know you were doing it. And then you moved up, as a BA, then to being a project coordinator and a project manager. So the question I would ask you is, what value do you think contributing in project teams in different capacity has on eventually becoming a project manager? I've heard some people say, okay, I don't have any experience, but I want to be a project manager. I'm applying for project manager roles, but I'm not getting. And, perhaps they forget that there are other important project roles within a project team. So based on, your experience and your journey, what would you say is the value of being a project contributor as a pathway to being a project manager?
I would say that it's invaluable, because right there as a project participant, as taking a role on in a formal project, you're contributing one way or the other. You understand, for instance, if your project manager is asking you for a report, you understand those kind of engagements with the project manager. You're part of meetings, you're part of communications, you're part of building. If you're in a tech space, you're even part of what, like Bemi said, like a testing role, or you're contributing one way or the other, and it helps you to see the big picture. As a matter of fact, and I'm jumping the gun here, but the Pmp exam really tests your participation in a project. As a project manager and in other roles, that exam actually tests your knowledge of being in the project world, experiencing a project, more than a question and answer, if I may say so. Yeah, like more than the theory. It actually tests your experience. So no experience is wasted. As a matter of fact, my first project coordinator role was at Microsoft, but it had nothing to do with tech. Microsoft in Nigeria was a sales shop, and they were selling Microsoft products. There was no tech anywhere. I was coordinating a sales team, and even in that, all those skills are transferable. All those skills are valuable. The time that you spend participating in a project cannot be taken away from you.
Thank you very much, Omar. Really valuable points. So the key takeaway, from what I'm hearing is, so even though, some in the audience are thinking of becoming a project manager tomorrow, the current experience at the moment is still very valuable, and can even be used at an interview as proof of contributing in projects. Do other panelists have any thoughts on this or would like to contribute?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Omayele, for bringing that up. I like to start my story by saying I started from my family business and the reason I do that really is to let people know that no experience can be discounted. Every experience counts. And I must say that a lot of things I've done in this, like in my professional career, because I've done a number of things. I've been a chef. The business, yeah, the business, the family business I mentioned earlier is actually retail, and I can tell you that those experiences have actually contributed to my career growth. I got a job here in Canada based on my experience as a chef, a PM job actually, within hospitality. I got a job, in fact, a recent contract I got, because I work on contracts. So a recent contract I got with one of the biggest retail firms in the world. I don't want to give a name out because of the nature of the job. I got it because of my retail experience from back home in Nigeria with my family business. Because I was able to speak to the problems they say they have. I was able to speak to them. I was able to prefer, of course, possible solutions. So that's how I was able to get that job. So no experience should be discounted in this field or in any field for that matter.
Thank you very much, Mukhtar. Very helpful advice. If you all noticed in the audience, you'd see me looking sideways. I have the chat on a different screen, so I'm very committed to taking your contributions. So please write your questions there. I see MJ has announced she got a PMP. Fantastic. That's a great step. Congrats. So please feel free to type your questions there. I'm going to select it. Or if you want to contribute during the Q&A session, you can also raise your hands. For now, we still want to learn much more from the panelists. And so, as a follow-up question, to that, then my question would be for you, Madhu. You did say that you were actually appointed, as a project manager. It was more like a discovery. You didn't know you had a talent in you. Someone just pointed it out that you are a natural project manager. But that's because you were already managing projects. You were already, doing things that were related to project management before even having the title project manager, and even before writing the PMP. I understand. So, my question to you would then be, project experience before PMP or PMP before project experience. What's your view?
That infamous question: the egg before the chicken, or the chicken before the egg, right? And I'll be a lot careful here with addressing this because of our audience, right? Whichever works for you. They say different strokes for different folks, right? So I'll start with that. Whichever works for you, go with it, right? But to what Omar has said, the PMP exam, it's not a yes or no exam, yes or no question. It actually would want to validate that you are a project manager, in the sense that you have been experienced and you are doing the role, you're practicing that role of project management, right? So I would typically advise to say, first learn or practice project management, right? And validate that within yourself before getting the PMP. And the simple reason is this, right? These days, the market has made it look as though if you don't have a PMP certification, you're not a project manager, right? And that's just market driving the needs, right? Recruiting managers want to be sure that you have a PMP as though that is what validates you as a project manager. Fair and good, right? Fair and good. But as it has been said earlier on, you actually practice or become a project manager based on all the roles you have been playing in a team, even before you officially earn that title of a project manager. It's just a title, really. It's a title, right, of project manager. And so everything you have been doing actually rolls up to your being a project manager in the first instance, right? So if you feel that you've been doing that, then obviously go and get that certification, because it goes a long way to validate your experience. So for example, recently I had someone reach out to me and say, I'm preparing for Pmp exam. I heard it's tough, I heard it's hard. I'm afraid I would not scale the exam. And I asked her, I said, how many years experience have you had working in this role? She said, I've had over 8 years experience. I said, don't even study for the PMP. Go and write it, you will pass. She said, really? I said, yes, because whatever they're going to ask you is what you've been doing. Everything they're going to be asking you is what you have. You don't need to study. And they thought I was, not being serious, but eventually they agreed. They went to write the exam and they passed the exam, right? Because they have validated themselves. They know it already, right? It's in there already, right? So yes, again, it's what works for you at the end of the day, right? But let's understand that having the PMP certification does not validate you as a project manager, right? And you can actually be a project manager without that certification. For example, I didn't have my PMP until about 12 years into practicing project management, right? I didn't have my PMP certification, right? But I could speak to it, right? So again, the chicken before the egg, both is valid.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madhu. That's a valid point. Mukta, I saw you're muted. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, just to buttress what Madhu said. Yeah, the PMI requested for at least 5 years of work experience for a reason. It's not because it's not the entry level certification. It's the certification for the experienced PMs. Experienced PMs in quote, not the title, not you having the title of a project manager, but you having practiced project management. So PMP, yes, the market is hot. If you have a PMP, it boosts your chance of getting a job. But is it the first thing? My answer would be no. And of course, anyone else can say otherwise, but my answer would be no. I got my PMP in 2019. I practiced project management for years before then. And you're very correct. A day before my PMP, I had a lot of problems, personal issues I couldn't share. A few hours before my exam, I couldn't sleep because I was on the road trying to clear my bank account because it was locked at the time. I couldn't even pay my rent at that time. I went into that exam. I wasn't even sure I would pass. I got in there. I did what I could. I passed. That's because I had the experience. And I could just relate to the things from the exam. Oh, if this situation, what would you do? What would be the best thing to do in this situation? Of course, referring back to my experience, I passed. Right. So if you have that experience, very exactly what Madhu said, the chance that you pass is very high. If you don't have the experience and you've just studied, you can pass, but then it doesn't still make you a project manager, really. That experience counts for me more than the certificate. The certification gets you the interview, but the experience gets you the job most 99% of the time.
Thank you very much, Mukta. Very valid point as well. As Madhu did say, whatever works, for one, because, for me, it was more of, the PMP being an eye opener. I'd always been involved in communications. I've always, worked on marketing projects per se. We don't call them projects, we call them campaigns, right? And so as I was preparing for the PMP, I was like, but this is what I'm doing. Like, this is what I've been doing. It's not a new thing now. Resource management, we hire and we fire. I mean, the only thing is that when you now write the PMP, you can now use the jargon. Like Mukta says, it gets you, the interview. In the interview, you speak confidently because you're speaking project management language and you have more confidence. Bemi, please. I saw you raised your hand. Please share.
I was just going to add to what my other panelists have said, that Yeah, your experience so far would actually really help you in writing the PMP exam, because PMP is highly situation based. The question is not a yes or no, it is highly contextual too. But also, I would want to put a caveat that our people should also be aware of what I call, and have heard some other people call, native intelligence, because PMP will question you based on the ideal situation. What you may have been doing as a project manager, or maybe as someone within the project team, may have not been the right thing that is ideally expected by the Pmbok. So really, reading up the Pmbok or preparing for it is also quite important, so you don't fall foul of the native intelligence thing.
That's very important. Thank you, Bimi, for that important reminder. Oma, please.
Yes, I was just going to add to that, for people who are new or are just entering a project environment, or don't even think that they're in a project environment, to start to look at the project managers or the project people around them. What are they doing? How are they doing it? I remember one question in my exam was about meetings, and I sat back and I thought, what does my project manager do? So that's because it's the practice of it, right? So in many situations, what would you do? Like Bemi said, the ideal situation, not the way you cut corners. I was fortunate enough to be in an environment where they stuck to the books. They did everything by the book. So what are people doing around you? Even as you prepare for the exam, if you are preparing for the exam, what are the project managers around you doing? And then you can say, oh, this person is going by the book and this person is not. It helps you also. But be aware of what's going on around you.
Thank you very much. Very valid points from all our panelists. I'm becoming conscious of the word valid. I feel like I've said that like 20 times. Sorry about that. Wow, lots of questions here in the chat. We'll get back to you during the Q&A session. Please keep them coming. One question I do want to ask you, Bimi, when you were speaking, you did talk about transferable skills and how you've always been in tech, and how you've fallen in love with tech project management. I'm fully aware that NIPCA is an IT-focused professional platform. So there are a lot of people who are tech, based here. So, my question would be, what would you say are the core competencies or, important skills or transferable skills for IT project management?
Yeah, interesting question, actually. Well, like I tell people, IT project management is the same everywhere, because project management is basically, it's change management. And what are the factors that are involved in change management? People are changing their ways, which is process change. And it is also, people are the ones that would actually affect the process change. So it is people management, it is process management. For me, at a high level, that is what it is. And of course, you have other things like you're managing the cost of effecting that change, the time it takes to do that, and so many other things. You have risks and all those other things. So if you have that at a high level, and you think about it, that what do I need to be able to manage people? You need to be a people person. You need to have empathy. You need to be patient. You need to have listening skills. And all those kind of soft skills that in a lot of cases will play down. Those are the most important things for a PM in my perspective. But then in tech, yes, tech, because there's so much jargon, there's a way we talk in tech. So domain knowledge comes in there. If you've been around tech, you've been working with tech people, it makes it easier to communicate. So it's really more along communication management in that case. You would be able to communicate better with tech people, but what you are still doing is people management. What you're still doing is process management. What you're still doing is time, cost, and basically value engineering. That's what you're doing. You are delivering value. You're managing priorities. That's what you're doing as a PM. Having that domain knowledge, being in tech for a long time, being able to understand when developers speak, the engineering speak helps. But if you don't have it, what I tell people is bring the conversation down to what is the impact on the scope? What is the impact on this, on the value we're supposed to be delivering? Are we delivering value? What is the risk based on what you've decided you're going to do? What are the risks? Are you considering any risk? You question the assumptions. What are your assumptions? So things like you have your rate, your risk, your risks, the decisions, your issues list, and all that. Those are standards for every PM, whether you are managing tech or you're managing business focused thing. But for me, I decided to stick with tech because I love working with tech people. Like I love working with tech people, which doesn't mean that I can't work in the business space, but I just love working with tech people because I fancy myself as a tech enthusiast. I love technology. I love learning new technology. So when I learn and I see that being implemented, it makes it easier for me to relate with the team. I'm the kind of PM that you see, I like sitting in troubleshooting sessions because I learn from that, but that is me. That doesn't mean everybody has to do that. For you to be able to do well in technology, doesn't mean you have to do that. Doesn't mean you have to be able to have technology certifications. But if you feel that helps, fine. But my advice is always bring it down. Always bring the discussion, whatever it is, when they go on and on and on about all that, bring it down to, so this is the scope that has been agreed. Are we delivering to scope? Are we meeting all our objectives? It is your OKRs. Are we meeting all the objectives that we set out that we're going to meet? That is it at the end of the day for me.
I say something here.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much, Bemi. Omar, please go, because I also know that you have lots of experiences in cybersecurity risk management.
So for me, the key competencies I would say are the soft skills. There's always subject matter expertise that you can bring to the table, but communication skills are top of my list, because you can't do people management, you can't do contract management, you can't do vendor management without those communication skills. For instance, if you were in a meeting and you were taking the minutes of the meeting, how would you take those minutes to communicate to the rest of your team? Somebody asked the question, how do you develop those skills? You practice them, right? You practice the speak, as Bemi said. You engage with the members of your team. You don't just carry your notebook into the meeting with a stone face, and then when the meeting is over, you carry and go back to your desk and continue your coding. Engage with other people. What are they thinking? Ask the relevant questions. You'll be surprised that when you ask a question, somebody will say, that's exactly what I was going to say, or that's exactly what I was going to ask. Like she said, and it's all based on your communication skills. Don't be afraid to speak. Make sure you're speaking correctly. And also mind your audience. The questions you're going to ask the CEO, for instance, are not the same questions you're going to ask your team members. What are you saying? Are you saying it at the right time to the right person? For instance, if you're presenting to the chief financial officer, as many project management offices are under the CFO doesn't really care what the developer is doing. For the CFO, he cares about the dollars. Are we spending? How much are we spending? Are we going to overspend? How can we cut down on our spending? So if you're telling him, if you're, for instance, a project manager, and you're telling him how the project went or which developer didn't turn up for work, he will throw you out. So communication in every aspect of project management.
Thank you very much, Omar. Just to remind you all, I'm a communications and engagement manager. So that's my, yeah, that's on a lighter note. Madam.
Yes, thank you so much. So Omar and baby, beautiful. You've just nailed it, right? And I just wanted to add a little bit of spice to what you said, but you nailed it. Project management, yes, being an SME is vital, right? Being knowledgeable in the field that you're practicing is vital. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, guys, are we going to deliver this thing based on what we agreed? Simple facts. That's the bottom line, right? So jingle, language, lingo, beautiful, right? But at the end of the day, it's the ability to be able to drive it down to the lowest level where everybody understands that, yes, we are on track. No, we're not on track. We need to do something. There are certain risks that we need to mitigate, manage, reduce, right? Resources that we need, and just all of that. So those are the building blocks, the elements that drive it, right? And that's why oftentimes, again, I may be wrong, but based on what I've seen out there, and I've been about in the block a while, you would often find that most core project managers, like who are really at the core of it, they're not SMEs, right? They are people who can motivate, who can rally a team round, right? Who can get people to agree, to get on with the work, right? And those are soft skills you can buy in the market, unfortunately. Right, those are soft skills you can buy in the market. But yes, those are at the end of the day, right? When everything else is said and done, that is project management 101. I just wanted to add that.
Interesting. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Omayeli and Bim. And I lowered my hands because you've all just said it all. I will just add my little bit to it. I always say to people that a project manager's technical interview is a soft skill interview for others, because what you call soft skill are those key things. That's what you'd call technical skills for a project manager. Can you communicate? Do you know your priorities? Do you understand your scope, the scope of the work? How are you managing your resources? Can you negotiate for those resources? Can you manage your budget? Those are, to me, those are basic things. And of course, at the end of it all, leadership. Can you lead people to deliver on a vision? That's what makes a project manager. Everything else, subject matter expertise is good, is great, but at the end of it, it's not really it's not what you'll be judged on. That's not what your KPI will be based on as a project manager. It's really your ability to navigate that project from the start to the end of it, and everything else that comes with it. So communication, 98% of what you would do as a project manager is communication. Are you communicating your budget? Are you communicating your status? Are you communicating with your team? Are you communicating with whoever else, other stakeholders? Communication. 98% of it is communication. Thank you.
I once had a manager who would raise her hand in the meeting when the techies get carried away. She'll raise her hand and say, "I'm the stupid one in the room. Can you explain it to me?" And usually for us non-tech, let me call myself a non-tech project manager, if the techie can explain it to you, he knows what he's doing. If he can't explain it to you, double click on it. Something is off.
Thank you very much, Omar. The interesting thing is that in my organization, my role is actually that, to break down, those technical projects, those technical, languages, to the public, that's to the residents, right? So sometimes it's really frustrating how, absorb, is that the right word? Or yeah, involved, the techies are in their work, that they forget that there are people out there who are not even, they are not even your direct stakeholders, right? So for instance, my organization does a lot of engineering projects that affect people out there, right? So you're going to dig the ground, that would go under someone's house, and you're trying to explain to the person the impacts, right? So it's really interesting how, tech people just forget that there are people who don't understand. So I do the same thing as well. I see the, deck, I see the presentation, and I'm like, I don't even know what's, what are these jargons? Imagine that I am the person you're going to knock on the door to say, look, we are going, there's going to be a lot of noise and vibration from this construction. How should I understand what's going on? So yeah, that's a very valid point about people management, communication skills, people management, being able to break down things. And, I really like the point you mentioned, Omar, about, being not flexible. Flexible is not the right word, but adjusting communication based on the audience, right? So the way you would speak to your reports would be different from, the CFO, like you said, or the client or the sponsor or the different stakeholders require different communication skills.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a very valid point. There is another really common question. It's more like a controversy that people do, ask. Can I combine product management and project management, or do I have to choose one? What would you guys, say about that? The question is open. Okay, Madu, you go first.
And while you asked that, I was laughing, right? Because funny enough, earlier today, I had the similar conversation today. Someone reached out and somehow the discussion went into product versus project management. And I was like, product management is not project management. They are two different things. Like I could almost say they are not somewhat related, even though there are some, overlaying elements, right? But they are two different things, right? Product management is concerned about products, right? And how to monetize that, right? How to develop strategies around that product, right? That is geared towards the scope and the visions of the organization, right? That's product management in a nutshell. Project management 101 is managing projects. Simple. I don't have any other way to describe it. Right? And those two are not really, like they're not the same thing, right? So let's bring it home. Let's break it down, right? Right now, so and again, I also would like to also make another differentiator. Product managers or product management, it's not the same thing as product owners or product ownership. They're still different. People often interchange both and say product owner / manager. They're not the same thing, right? A product owner is not a product manager, and a product manager is not a product owner. They're not the same. Anyway, so products, as I said before, I think, when you're managing a product per se, you are looking all around a particular, unique, well-defined element within the organization, which could be the product that the organization is developing or building, right? For example, it could be a mobile app, just for an emphasis. But when you're doing project management, as we've said, you're dealing with all the leadership and all the other elements that surround and involve the successful execution of that project, right? And so product development could actually be a project, right? But then it goes a little bit more above just what you would do as a product manager, right? And then oftentimes you will have those handshakes where project is done and it's handed over to the manager to manage products, right? And they would, from then on, manage the life cycle of it, right? Oftentimes that happens, right? I've also seen instances where it's the reverse. Product is built and then handed over to the PM to maintain that product going forward, right? To maintain it. So it could work either way, right? But I just wanted, and I hope I've been able to, but I'm sure others would help me speak to it, that both are not the same thing. And for those who are asking, which should I be? It's because you're probably confused about both, right? You're thinking that it's either I'm a product manager or I'm a project manager. So right now I manage 3 projects, 3 core projects that are global. So I've got elements of it across the world, right? Teams here and there, all over the place, right? And in one of them, I'm actually both the project manager and the product manager. In one of them, I'm playing both roles, right? So while we discuss about what new features or elements we need to build, I'm also talking about what resources do I need to build out this new element? Do I have the right skill set within my team to execute it? Do we need to hire somebody else? What do I need to do? Because those are project management and not product management, right? I'll let others speak. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Madhu. Mukhtar, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, and and I went back on you because you just said what I wanted to say. I've seen product managers that function as project managers, not because they are the same, just because they have that skill set and they can just leverage it. And if you ask me personally, I advise against it because a product manager is focused on the product, profitability. When do we get this to the market? A project manager is focused on how do we deliver this project successfully. Both, in fact, there can be that conflict of interest if you're functioning as both at the same time. So personally, I advise against it. Do companies do it? Yes, companies do it. A lot of companies do it. A lot of companies do it, but they are not the same. So just to clarify that, they are not the same. A product
and they don't
manager.
pay the same. If you want to combine both, be ready to pay the maximum for both roles to one person.
Exactly. So exactly. And I can only imagine how much you're earning, Maggie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. There's one more question before the.
I wanted
you wanted to? Okay.
that.
Oh, sorry,
Yes.
baby. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, that in my experience, especially with agile organizations, they tend to have the product managers do do the work of project managers because really agile organizations mostly manage the life cycle of products, and they're always pushing out new features. They're always pushing out new features to end users out there. And yes, some get it right, some are able to do it, and that's because they don't really do so much of project management there. What they really have are more of product managers who are able to do a lot of the project management work. And that's because the project management work is probably just limited to maybe the Scrum team or maybe the Scrum of Scrums. There isn't so much of the internal communications management that the product manager cannot really do. But some are not able to get away with it. They eventually end up getting project managers, and in some cases they get technical project managers instead of your standard project managers, because they would want people that can actually be able to manage the tech part of it, while the product manager actually manages the business side of things.
All right. Thank you very much, Pemi.
And in addition to that, there's another role of the product owner in the Scrum world. So that's a different leg entirely. The product owner there is really like bringing the feature, managing each feature that is coming into the product. The product manager is managing the life cycle of the project. So the product manager may not be the product owner. And if it's a tech product, then sometimes you will find that the product owner is a technical person, or but then it's also distinct from a project manager role, who a project manager is managing, let me say, end-to-end delivery. I'm using the word delivery very loosely here, but end-to-end for the entire project. The first day we say we're going to do something, and when we finish doing it and we can close the books, close the project and go home, that's the project manager's role. The product manager can finish his project sales, project the life cycle of the project and move on. He doesn't have to babysit any delivery. The product owner is coming to the table with the features he wants to see added. So 3 different roles. In some organizations, they will marry some of those roles, but 3 different things, 3 different end results.
Yeah, and I would just add
some
that.
even. Please go ahead, Mukhtar.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just add that I have seen project managers that actually live through the life cycle of a product, not because they're the product. So they launch the product as a product. Sorry, I'm mixing it up. They launch the product as a project. So from initiation to go live, and then they manage enhancements as they come in. But they are not the ones managing the product with the customers, with the client, or whoever. So two different roles entirely. So we've seen project managers that stay on with a product, but not because they're product managers, but because they're project managers that help manage enhancements and the continuity of the product in the back end.
Thank you very much, you all.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that what some organizations have actually been involving that role into, as in the combined role of the product and project manager, is what you see out there as delivery managers. So delivery managers are those that are actually, they are also responsible for the life cycle of that product, but still manages the projects that comes as a result of enhancements that are done to that product.
Thank you very much. Very helpful explanations. I hope everyone is able to understand the distinctions as well as, some of the similarities for those who choose to combine the roles. One advice, money is important. If they want to combine the role, ask them to double salary. If they are not ready, just stick to one role.
Combine the role, combine the role.
Okay, so I can see some questions in the chat box. So now we are going to the Q&A session. We have about 30 minutes for Q&A. So please feel free to raise your hands. I'm going to be switching between the chat and the gallery view, so I can see anyone who raises their hand. So if you want to type your question in the chat, you can do that. If you want to speak, just raise your hands. I'll call you. So while we're waiting for people to summon the boldness to put on their videos and ask their questions via voice, I'll just go to the chat box. So I can see one question: how does one prepare for the PMP? I would just respond to that to say, why not go to PMI website? They always update materials. There's always the latest version of the Pmbok. The Pmbok I used to prepare for mine is probably outdated. So you could go there, download the Pmbok, check out some, tips there. I also do know that NIPCA organizes, different sessions for those who want to take the PMP. So you could also, send an email to NIPCA to find out, what kinds of trainings there are, and sign up for one of them. Madu, you want to contribute to that?
Yeah, I wanted to contribute by adding a little bit of spice to what you said last, right? Get trained. Pmbok, the most boring book in the world, my bad.
I can't agree with you more.
And I'm saying this because I sit on the executive board of PMI. I actually help roll out these things with PMI, right? So, but then again, I'm here saying that it was the boring book, and we all agree that it is, right? And what still is that pretty much nothing from the book it's going to be asked in the exam. I'm sorry to say, but there is no, the book is just, again, it's a guide. That's one thing people often miss. It's a guide. It's a suggestion, right? They're saying, see if you could do it this way, right? It might work, but it's up to you to decide how you want to do it, right? So again, while I say it's a good place to a good book to have, I wouldn't recommend it as a book good to study towards the exam itself, right? I wouldn't recommend that. Honestly, I think pretty much what everybody has said today goes to elaborate on the preparations you need to write in the exam, right? We've said practice PMP, right? Be a PMP, right? In the sense that, you walk the talk and all of that, right? And then you realize that the exam is really a walkover for you, right? Get trained, right? Liaise with other PMs that right? See what they're doing, how they're doing it, right? Again, we've said a whole lot of things today, right? That actually goes to answering that question. So I can understand that that question was the first, but pretty much everything that has happened beneath that question, or what we've said, has gone in their own way to addressing that question. So yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just add to that, say practice. So one thing is, after you have, of course, you have the experience, you've done the training. If you choose to use the practice test, so that would help you, that would show you, guide you through the PMI thinking. How does PMI think? So that helps you when you get to the exam to say, okay, in a PMI world, if I see a situation like this is how I should address it. It's not a DOMS, like they'll call it. It's not a DOMS or anything. It's just to guide your thinking during the exam.
Thank you, Omar.
So I was just going to add that the Pmbok should be used as a reference material. You really need a study guide, and there are a few good ones out there. Everybody says Rita. Rita is the first person. My colleagues who I studied with at the time said, I killed Rita. She died a few years ago. I killed her because I do not like her. I didn't like her material. It was cumbersome for me. So don't jump into everybody says use Rita. I couldn't use Rita. My favorite one is Tony Johnson. Tony Johnson did it for me, because at the end of every knowledge area there were questions and all of that. So I used Tony Johnson. Andy Crow is another one. Andy Crow is a bit watered down in my liking, to my liking rather, and I would prefer something more serious. I think Andy Crow was a bit laid back, but there are many things out there. PMI has a lot of materials. There are YouTube videos. There's all kinds of things as well. So don't get stuck with one thing. If it's not working for you, look for something else that works for you. Yeah. Don't attempt to read the Pmbok cover to cover. You will never write the exam because you will never finish reading it. Yes, Crosswinds is Tony Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you everyone.
I should say that
someone in the chat say Crosswind is Tony Johnson. Yeah.
I did not read any book for PMP. I used
okay, that's very interesting.
Prepcast. Yeah, I used PM Prepcast by Cornelius.
Okay, Prepcast, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
The simulation questions. Just practice, and that was it. I did not read any book.
Very interesting. I feel really bad that you guys are talking down on Pmbok. I read Pmbok. That was my go-to. I loved it. Rita was just like more explanatory, but I felt Rita kind of watered it down a bit, like diluted the purity of Pmbok. But again, whatever works for you. I mean, there are already a lot of resources, and if you are still confused, you're still trying to get more information, you can email info@blacktechhub.org, and you will get lots of resources, lots of information on trainings and as well. I like the next question in the chat. I still have not seen any hands raised, so I want to believe that more people are interested asking questions via the chat. And the next one says, can each panelist tell us what a work day looks like? It's an interesting question. Can we all mute, please, if we're not speaking? Okay, yeah, I've muted you. So can each panelist tell us what a work day looks like? So briefly, so that we can get through all the questions. I'll start with you, Mukhtar. You're so enthusiastic about describing your day. You must really love your job. Go ahead, please.
Okay, and I always say it's a trick question because there's no such thing as a typical day in the life of a PM. It doesn't exist. So my day typically starts with meeting with my team, see pretty much what you'd call a stand-up. But I don't call it a stand-up because I don't spend 15 minutes. It's just, what did you do? How is it going? Is there anything you need from me? What do you plan to do for today or for the week, depending? Once I get that done, I check my emails. Is there anything I need to respond to? If there's any, I respond to it. After that, it's just meetings after meetings after meetings. As they come, firefighting, making sure everything works, solutioning, decision-making. That's pretty much my day as a PM. There's no such thing as a typical day. It's just as it comes. As those issues will come, problems will come, stakeholders will call you here, you have something to do there, partners are calling you here and there, clients are calling, so.
Thank you very much. I like the term firefighting. Putting off the fires. Omar.
Heading the cats.
Yeah.
That's what the day looks like, herding the cats. Okay, so for me, a typical day is not typical. Many, like Mukhtar said, many days you have your day planned and it just doesn't happen. maybe you've run some tests overnight, and you come in the morning expecting everything to be 100% passed, and it's 90% failed. Then you put on your firefighter hat, and you get in there with your fire hose and you put out fires. Who needs to be in the room? What actions need to be taken, and all of that. The other aspect I hear a lot of people ask about is budget cost management. That's also very important, because when you hire resources, when resources are on your project, you're paying for them. So, for instance, if I come in and I have a fire to fight, immediately I'm going to be thinking about the cost implication of that fire. What has happened? If I can correct it quickly, oh, everybody is happy. But if it's done damage, for instance, if there's a security breach and we have to respond in some way, shape, or form, what does that response look like? Does it stop operations? Or did I make a change last night? Okay, let me bring it down a bit. Did I make a change last night in my system, and this morning users cannot log on? For somebody, it's an outage. That outage means that the person's KPI is affected. They are not smiling with me. For somebody else, it's they need to troubleshoot and find a fix. For somebody else, they need to do damage control. Who's going to go talk to the business and tell them, calm down, we're fixing it? So all those people need to be in the room, and all those people need to be guns blaring, really. So there's no typical day. there's really nothing like that. And once again, communications come to the fore. How are you breaking the bad news? I've listed several stakeholders now that you have to engage with. Some you're getting information from, some you're giving information to. How are you doing that? If you put everybody in a room, they're going to fight. So you probably have to separate them. Tell the CEO that his users will be back online very soon. Tell the developer, I need this thing fixed in an hour. You don't have more than an hour. Do you understand? Sometimes you even have to do second or third level escalations. And people who are not already on your team are either going to charge you for the time, or they're going to, there's some way, somehow, your project is impacted and you have to report it. At the end of the day, you have to communicate in a report what happened, what you did, what the current situation is, and what the expected outcome will be if you haven't already resolved the issue. Right? So
Thank you.
I could go, you can tell I can go on and on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop.
Thank you very much, Omar. Really valid points. Anything could come up in in the project. I did remember on a Monday morning, bright Monday morning, around 9 a.m., myself and my director had spoken. We had planned out our day, and around 12 p.m., there was this, client blasting article by CBC on one of the projects that we're advising them on, and that day became a PR nightmare. And rather than doing what we had planned, we started troubleshooting, trying to figure out solutions, and also trying to plan to make sure that no other damaging article like that comes out for the next few months, and trying to ensure that we the client still has trust in us. So yeah, I do agree that there is no typical day per se, but I also want to hear from Bemi and Madu, because the person is interested in each of the panelists. So
okay, so yeah, I actually quite agree with Mukhtar and Omayele's point, and Omayele's point more actually speaks to my typical day, because as a PM you are constantly prioritizing and reprioritizing, because what you plan to do. In quite a lot of cases, you could have spanner being thrown at your will as early as the start of the day, really, because especially when you actually make changes to the system, and you just don't know what could happen, and so you are in a lot of cases, really, you are in that post-mortem. You're in that post-mortem world where you're just checking what is it that we did yesterday? What's the impact today? What are we planning to do now? And what is our perceived impact? What it is that we've planned to do, and how are the user community doing? So really, for me, I have there are multiple channels that I'm always just checking. Is there anything that is on my team that we're supposed to work on? Yes, this is what we planned, and this is before I even go into the team daily meeting with the team, and I check around to see if there's anything that is pending with us. And that actually informs my day with the team. We look at what it is that we did yesterday. What are we planning to do today? How is that getting us closer to the goals that we've set? How is that getting us closer to the commitments that we've made to our stakeholders? And of course, planning communication to stakeholders, various stakeholders. We give them a communication based on what they need. No, you don't plan same communication for everybody. Omayele has spoken a lot to this, really, and so I agree with all what has been said, really.
Thank you. Madu, anything new to add? If not, we could go to the next question.
I think we can move on. Nothing really new to add.
All right. Thank you.
Good day of a project manager.
Okay, thank you.
We have good days, though.
Right.
We do have good days.
Yeah. Where we celebrate milestones, right? And
so actually every day for the project manager is a good day because you're doing what you love to do. Irrespective of how
I tell you,
it's a good day for you. Forget though, you're the project manager and you're having fun doing what you do, right? It could be a bad day for the rest of the team and the stakeholders and all that. But for you, this is where you thrive in. You're doing what you're born to do. This is project management 101, right? So
and the more problems you solve, the better you feel about yourself. Like, oh yeah, I did that.
Go home smiling. I
more better.
Exactly. Performance currency. Thank you. So the next question is for you, Bimi. The participant said she's a senior. I don't know what SW is, but developer.
Software.
Okay. Senior software developer working in the industry for 9 years now, and she wants to move to a manager role. She has seen a lot of, I'm so sorry, I'm assuming it's a she. The person has seen a lot of managers practicing management, project management, and the person wants to make a career shift. So the first question is, how can I approach the recruiters? How should my resume look like if I was or I'm a software developer my whole career? Is it even possible without a PMP? If I'm entering new, should I look at CAPM or PMP? So this is someone who already has 9 years experience as a software developer, as a senior software developer, and then want to move up to the manager role or project manager role. What advice would you have for her? Focus on these questions, Bimi.
Okay, I think we've already talked about this really on the high level at the earlier stages, where we said that people who are already contributors or people who are already part of the project team already are exposed to what a project manager does. They contribute to the work of the project manager. So really, what I would advise is that, especially someone that is a senior software developer role, you are already, you've been doing a lot of research, you've been doing a lot of task breakdown, you've been doing a lot of solutioning, you've been doing a lot of resource management because you're probably managing junior developers within your team. You've been doing a lot of schedule management because I'm sure you're involved in multiple projects. You're not doing just one project at a time. So you've been doing a lot of the work of a project manager. What you just need to do is to be able to have come up with a resume that actually speaks to your experience. Your resume, your kind of resume has to be use case based. Yes, but then you have to also be able to speak of a project manager within your resume. You have to move it away from the core tech resume that you had. You're going to have the resume of a PM because you are going to now bring out what you have been doing that is the work of the PM, not the work of a software developer. So really, you can start by looking at PM resumes. You can go online, you see a lot of project manager resumes, a lot of project manager job posts to see what are the things they're asking for. I'm sure by the time you start looking at that, you would be able to, they would resonate with you. You would see that some of these things are things that you have been doing. And that would then help you to come up with a resume in that case. Yes, and then you asked if you actually need a PMP to start. I don't think you need a PMP to start. But a PMP would actually be a plus, but I don't think you need a PMP to start for you to go for a PM role. But if you feel that you still need some education, really, you could decide to do. I still advise people to also go for boot camps or things like that. That would just serve as some sort of brushing you up with to prepare you well for that space. That's just what you can actually reach out to me on LinkedIn. Really, I'll put my LinkedIn post there so we can actually discuss further on this.
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Bimi. Mukta, you, and then we move to our next question.
Yeah, so, and I know that question was directed at Bimi, but I've seen someone in a very similar situation who actually helped to become a project manager. So I thought, okay, maybe this would help. So this person was already a tech lead within the project team. And what he did, which you can do as well, was he approached me and said, how can I become a project manager? I said, well, I think you're already managing people. You're already prioritizing, just like Bimi said, you're already prioritizing people's work. You're already leading people and guiding them towards what needs to be done right now, and what needs to be left for later. So all these things are project management skills that you already have. So what I did with him was I moved him closer to the business side where most of my business meetings will be on it, because it voiced out, right? So that's one thing you can do. You can talk to those guys that are already doing it. Maybe they can give you an opportunity to practice, at least to boost your confidence if you're not confident enough that you can do it yet. To practice, because in terms of project experience, I think you have that. The virtue of being a senior developer, you already have that. So what you put on your resume is already available for you. In terms of accomplishments, in terms of projects you've worked on, that is available. Just want to speak to your leadership skills and your project management skills.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mukta. I hope you find it helpful, Sima. And thank you to Omar, Madhu, for responding in the chats as well. I see some questions that have already been answered. So this next question, I think I would like to start with you, Omar. It says, since the world is now becoming more agile, is the PMP certification necessary for new project manager roles such as Agile project manager stroke Scrum Master, Agile delivery lead? There's another question, so we can just merge it together. Is the PMI ACP certification more relevant than the PMP since the world is going Agile now? So I think, let's talk about Agile certifications, Agile project management, and
So the world is the world. The world is still as diverse as the world is. There are many organizations that are adopting Agile. They are adopting the Agile methodology. So it's a methodology. It's still project management. It still has the elements of project management, but let's call it a different style. I don't believe at this point in time that one is replacing the other. I find that many organizations who have adopted the Agile methodology often fall back on the waterfall methodology, especially if they're not product-oriented organizations. So for me, the Agile methodology works very well when you're delivering products. In many cases, not so well when you're doing other types of projects. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with the Agile methodology. It's just that different organizations adopt it in different ways, right? Therefore, I won't say that one is giving way to the other. The PMP has certainly been around, or both of them have certainly been around for a long time. Right now, more organizations, typically the Agile methodology was used for manufacturing, like delivering something. You want to see what you've delivered, rather than software, for instance, which is nobody can see it. So both methodologies are here to stay. I don't think one is replacing the other. the PMI ACP is not as popular as the Scrum Master certifications, PSM and CSM. However, it's not a bad certification. It's just not as popular. If you and to help you and guide you when you're looking online, look for what's it, especially if you have certain experience that you're trying to bring to bear. Look, what are they looking for? Are they looking for ACP? I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that often. I often see CSM or PSM or whatever, or but for the knowledge, the certification is valid. It is a good certification. It is recognized. It's just not as popular as the ACP. Did I finish answering that question?
I think you did. Madhu, you want to add something? Thank you, Ma. I saw
Right.
your hands were raised, or perhaps
Hoping
it's
that
from the
I'm
previous
hoping that
one.
in a minute or two, I'll be able to demystify what I felt was a gray area, right? Between Agile, the so-called Agile project management and waterfall project management. And full disclosure, I practice both. As I said before, I am PMP, and I'm also I've gone to all the rungs in Agile. I'm actually a certified Agile. So I practice both extensively, right? But that said, just like Omar said, they're not the same thing, right? Agile is just an umbrella that hosts some number of frameworks. Like the Scrum is a framework under Agile, right? Kanban is a framework under Agile. Extreme programming is a framework under Agile, right? However, in Waterfall is both methodology and practice. That's it. It's Waterfall. It's that, right? But under Agile, you've got a whole lot of things, right? And so, and then earlier on today, somebody also reached out and said, I have something new in my organization, and I'm asked to make the judgment call, which methodology do we use? Do we use an Agile-based methodology, or do we use Waterfall? And I told them, I said, the one key biggest factor that will help you determine that is, how much uncertainty am I dealing with? Okay? You don't build skyscrapers using Agile. You don't build roads using Agile. You don't fly aeroplanes using Agile. You don't go into operation room theater using Agile. It doesn't work. But when you are dealing with softwares and you're dealing with a high level or degree of uncertainty, but you still need to get going with the minimum information you have, then you want to use Agile methodology. If you know what you want to do from A to Z, please stick to Waterfall, because Agile will frustrate you if you get into that. Yeah, so those are not the same thing, right? So certificate-wise, and again, we see hiring managers mixing it up and say, everybody's doing Agile, let's do Agile, let's do Agile, let's do Agile, let's go the Agile way. No, I always like to clarify, why are you even doing Agile? Do you understand what it's about? Right? Because it's good. So last year, there was this stuff that we were building, and everybody had been eyeing. So when I started, they had to hand it over to me because it's been a big problem and nobody seemed to know how to build this software. So they handed it over to me, and I inherited an Agile method of building this software. And I'm like, so after a few months of writing Agile, it still wasn't working. I said, okay, guys, you know what? Let's try Waterfall. Do we know what we want to build? Yes. Can we go ahead and build this thing, please? This is not going to work. And in 3 months, we delivered the project that we've been building for 2 years that we could not deliver. So please understand the difference. They are not the same thing.
Thank you very much, Madhu. I mean, for someone that currently works in the planning and engineering space, like the civil engineering space, it's not Agile at all. It's very Waterfall. However, for some of the deliverables, we have the spirit of Agile in terms of continuous improvement and iterations, right? So, like even within the stakeholder engagement space where I work, within the engineering project, for every deliverable we have to put out in the public in terms of engagement, it goes through the iterations in quotes, right? The sponsor looks at it, we improve it, we go back, but it's still, the larger framework is still waterfall. So like Omar said, both are relevant, and there's diversity of methodologies. So we are a bit short of time.
I just wanted to add to that. I wanted to add a point to that. I know we're out of
30
time.
seconds. Okay.
30 seconds.
I'll let you go.
Okay. Go on.
Okay, the maturity of the organization also matters. So if you have people that have actually had the experience of working in agile organizations, they make it easier. But if people are used to waterfall, you have to move them over to agile first of all, because the mindset shift is the main thing. You have to shift your mindset. Agile allows you to actually do short space of planning. If you can't plan, if you don't have your view, like Yabadi said, for like a 6-month thing, if what you have in your view is just 2 weeks, what you can do within 2 weeks, please do agile. And if what you have in your view is what you can do within 4 weeks, short space of planning, agile helps you.
Thank you very much.
We should also note there's what we call hybrid. So they're not always mutually exclusive. You can have waterfall and agile work together. So I'll just add that. I don't want to say too much.
In fact, I recommend that most times. Do a hybrid.
Yeah, exactly.
Plan using waterfall, execute using
and
agile.
execute.
Thank you.
That's
so,
it.
So there's one question I find interesting here. And it says, any thoughts around open communication in a culture where some team members are not comfortable with that? I find open communication.
I was going to jump on that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Interpersonal skills. How do you engage people? You will always have different people on the team, and I'll give a couple of examples. I had a manager or a project sponsor who didn't like surprises. So coming into my weekly status meeting and telling her what's happening freaked her out every single time. She didn't like it because she didn't want to find out anything about her project in the project meeting. That's why the meeting is set up, right? All the stakeholders are in the room. So I had to create an avenue where I met with her before the meeting, and she gave me direction on what she wanted to be in that meeting. For instance, if her boss was going to be in that meeting, she didn't want certain things to be aired. She wanted to be able to communicate with her boss one-on-one. She wanted to be able to manage certain aspects of the project, decision making, out of the meeting room. I had a developer on my team who was grumpy. He was just grumpy. If you ask him anything, he won't answer. So I have to go to his desk and sit down, ask him if he's had coffee, ask him if he's had a nice day, then ask him for updates that I am going to bring to my report or bring to my meeting. If I put him in a room, he's not going to say anything. So there are different types of people. There are people who will take they'll take over your meeting. You have to even learn how to control those kind of people. So not everybody is going to be open. Not everybody is going to want to communicate in an open space. You have to be creative about ways of reaching them.
Thank you very much, Omar. Bemi, yes, go on.
Yeah, I just want to add that all what Omar has just said is the reason why Pmbok has a process for communication management. You, as a PM, it's a major, everybody has different communication needs. You must be cognizant of that. You don't use the same paintbrush for everyone when it comes to communication. Your team members, your stakeholders, your sponsors, everybody, they all have different communication needs. And as a PM, you must plan for that and be cognizant of that, especially those SLTs that you don't bring somebody to the meeting and they're just hearing about something for the first time. No way. In fact, what Omar said, that is just one stakeholder. I've had a lot of stakeholders that wanted that. So you must actually understand what each of your audience need and tailor the communication.
I was a baby PM at the time.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Lots of questions, but our time is coming to an end. There's one more question I see that I could just respond to. Aliyah asked, it seems most people here have some form of tech background. Well, it's NIPCA, it's Nigerian IT professionals in Canada, so it's very techy. I have a legal and administrative background. How do I cope in project management? I don't have a, tech background. I didn't study, engineering or all of that. I come from communications, marketing, currently I combine communications and project management with a bit of Agile. So it's very possible. One way you can do, if you already have, experience in legal and administrative, your domain, you could look out for like mega projects. There are certain really huge projects that have even legal aspects. For instance, one of the projects I'm in, the legal aspect is more of coming in when, the project contractor, like the construction, firm, maybe trespasses, maybe they want to bring down a tree and then they cut down a private tree, and then you're analyzing, okay, what are the legal impacts to this? How do we come in? So that's one way to get in. So you do not need to have a tech background to venture into project management. There are different fields of project management. There's, project management in health, in tech, in different domains, right? So you
there's almost always a compliance and regulatory component, especially in tech, in telecoms, where we're doing products. There's always a compliance and regulatory component.
Yeah, that's right. So I currently work on a compliance program as a program manager. So
okay, wow. Oh, yes, I do remember when we read your profile. So thank you very much. We are already, few minutes above time, and we need to wrap up. It's been an enjoyable session. Thank you everyone for coming. Can we all switch on our cameras? We love to take pictures towards the end of the session. So if you would like that, please turn on your cameras and smile. So we'll take your picture, please. So while we're waiting for you to turn on your cameras, I would want to say a really big thank you to our panelists, Omar, Mukhtar, Gbemi, and Madu. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your willingness to share your insights and experience. NIPCA appreciates your time and your volunteer spirit in coming here to speak with us. I also want to thank NIPCA for organizing this session. For those of you who are not used to NIPCA, this is one of the numerous masterclass series that NIPCA organizes. The organization has so much to offer in terms of knowledge sharing, networking, career coaching. I have benefited personally, and I know so many in the audience have as well. So if you want to benefit from these opportunities, please join NIPCA as a member. The link has already been put in the chat box. Go to the website, look at the offering, join our Telegram group, and volunteer with us. Thank you for those of you putting on your camera. Please put on, more people should put on their cameras. Let's take a picture. And I want to thank every one of you, every one of you for taking time to participate tonight, for asking some really critical questions, for listening in, for keeping mute. There wasn't much interference, so thank you for that. I enjoyed the session. It was a great conversation, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, to be part of it. And I wish we could do this much longer, but there is time for everything. So I would sign off now. I wish you a nice and lovely evening, and then, smile for the camera. Ugo, any other words for us or?
Well, I want to, especially on behalf of NIPCA, thank everyone who has taken the time off to be here. I want to especially recognize our speakers, our panelists. The truth about it is there's a lot of talent amongst us. And one of the things NIPCA does as its foremost mandate is to make sure that we try and provide a supporting platform to everyone who needs help. It started out as a small thing, so the name Nigerian IT Professionals in Canada. Today, NIPCA is way much more than that. So it's no longer a core tech ecosystem anymore. We now have people who are trying to pivot into tech. We provide supportive platforms for them. We have tech people who are trying to refurbish and revamp their careers. We're also very, very helpful to them too as well. So the truth about it is that it's a community that is bent on improving the social and professional welfare of all its members and anyone seeking help. So, like Faith did say, we have series of master classes. We also have a sister organization called Black Tech that handles a lot of trainings for us. So please, if you have need to retrain yourself, train yourself on new skills, Black Tech is the place to go. There is a Black Tech Hub that you can also look up there too as well. Provide a lot of subsidized trainings, especially for our members too as well. But that being said, about this session, a very big thank you to the speakers. Thank you, Faith. You did an excellent job moderating. I think we should retain your skill sets doing this more often. And then to everyone who stayed on the call this long, asked the mind-boggling questions, I also want to say a very big thank you as well.
Thank you so much, Ugo. Thank you, everyone. Have we taken the
And
picture?
a round of applause for our moderator. You did great. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Omar. Thank you. Ugo, have we taken the pictures? Can more people put on their cameras and then we can just sign off? Come on, I want to see your faces.